Yeah, I have certainly been inspired by history teachers in the past, but not in a predictable way, I think. My high school history teacher wasn't an outward enthusiast, but he did have a PhD and he did understand inquiry and he understood research. And he was able to take us through the content at the start of each class in quite a methodical, and you might think fairly tedious way, in the sense that we all worked our way through sections of the textbook. But after 10 or 15 minutes of having people in the class reading out sections of the textbook, he'd then stop and we would then say, right, what's the problem here? You know, why are the Russians so keen to get to Berlin first? Or you know, what is it about Woodrow Wilson that predisposes him to a kind of, you know, idealism in world affairs? So he would actually give you the content, but then make a very deliberate step back from that, in which you say, right, and now's the point in which we think critically about it and we start to explore other questions. And even though I don't think he felt, I know he felt that was an effective teaching style, but I don't think he fully understood how students found that, well, in my case, I found that encouraged you to actively step back from the material and actively inquire about what it all meant. So I guess I was impressed by the fact that he had a PhD. There was certainly a sort of an aura about him, the fact that he was a scholar, but it was that implicit sense of the inquiry involved. At university, where I had a lot of quite old-fashioned lecturers, I had some that said things but didn't really practice them, and I think generally speaking I had some lecturers who were very good public speakers, certainly, and there were others again whose scholarly reputation and scholarly standing was, you know, was impressive and so on. But active history teaching wasn't a big part of my university studies. And again, I think I've heard other people say this, is that one of the mistakes you can make when you begin your history teaching yourself is to fall into the habits of those who've taught you, even though in hindsight you felt they weren't necessarily the most inspiring thing, you know, that you'd come across. I think if I'd thought more critically about what I learnt implicitly from my high school teacher, I might have implemented that kind of an approach more systematically in my university teaching.